Recreate the Camel Trophy in 1/24 scale with the new FCX24M Land Rovers from FMS. All of the fun without the risk of malaria. Well, at least hopefully. Hello everyone and welcome! Today I'm excited to have the opportunity to look at the all-new FMS FCX24M Camel Trophy Land Rover Discovery. This all-new 1/24 scale RC platform incorporates many well-loved features from prior FCX series vehicles, but also features a smaller footprint to be more in line with other 1/24 scale crawlers currently on the market, straight axles for a lower center of gravity and a more scale appearance, as well as metal gears throughout the entire driveline. There's a lot to talk about, so let's have a closer look at this rig before we get it out onto the trails and see how it drives. Not one, but 4 different body options are available on this new platform. They include a first-gen Land Rover Discovery and Range Rover, as well as a Defender 90 and 110, all wearing the iconic Camel Trophy yellow. The Camel Trophy was an annual 4x4 competition held in the 1980s and 90s. Although there were competitive elements, it was as much about the exploration and adventure, traversing remote and difficult terrain through various regions with new locations picked every year. While comparatively humble Jeeps were used for the inaugural Camel Trophy in 1980, specially modified Land Rovers would be used for all the following years the event was held. Of course, these special Camel Trophy Land Rovers have become iconic, and they're a great vehicle to base an RC model off of. I think all of these trucks look pretty cool, but I went with the Discovery. The unboxing will be very familiar to those who have prior experience with FMS products. This truck comes well packaged and fully ready to run right out of the box. It includes some additional accessories, a charger for the included LiPo battery, a wheel wrench, decals, and a comprehensive manual complete with exploded diagrams. When storing or especially when traveling with these trucks, it's really nice to reuse the styrofoam packaging. Both the transmitter and the truck fits nicely into place. Unfortunately, with some of these more recent FMS releases, the top doesn't really click into place like on some of the old packaging. So what I like to do is cut a few small pieces of Velcro to stick on each corner. The Velcro will hold the lid on, but still make it very easy to remove. I carefully installed each of the accessories, which was very easy to do. Just be careful with those tiny pieces of hardware. I do want to point out that I used some heat shrink on the limb risers, which was not included with the truck, just to give them a little better appearance and help ensure that they don't come undone. The truck does come with a trailer hitch installed, so I wonder if FMS will be offering some 1/24 scale trailers to tow with these vehicles. They do currently offer some trailers compatible with the FCX18 LC80 and Chevy K10, however the hitch is a little too small on this truck to fit that trailer, and of course, as you can see, it's way out of scale. Speaking of scale though, one of the key features, if you want to call it that, of the new FCX24M is that its footprint is much more in line with other 1/24 scale crawlers currently on the market. As you may recall, prior FCX24 models, although frequently advertised as 1/24 scale, were quite a bit larger. This rig though is much more in line with what you would expect for a 24 scale crawler. The exact dimensions will vary a bit depending on which Land Rover body you choose. From a model builder or scale nerd's perspective, this body isn't quite a mathematical 1/24 scale replica of the real thing. It's a little larger than that. But so is basically every other 1/24 scale RC crawler on the market. They all tend to be a bit larger than a true 1/24 scale representation. If you're like me and you're more into the scale side of the RC hobby, I think you'll really like to see these straight axles on this FCX24M. All prior FCX series vehicles had portal axles. They have their own advantages and disadvantages compared to the more traditional straight axles that you see here. Now this really is an all-new chassis design. I'll be honest, I wasn't really sure what to expect when this truck showed up. I thought maybe they just removed the portal sections of the axles and called it a day, but no, there's a lot of differences and also what I would consider improvements. For example, all of the gears in the driveline are metal. Plastic drive shafts are still present, however if they end up being the weak link, I'd rather replace a drive shaft than an internal gear. It also looks like these drive shafts are the same size as on prior FCX24s, so you could upgrade those to metal if you wanted to. Now there is a 2-speed transmission just like on prior FCX vehicles, however this is a new more compact design. You'll notice a slightly smaller motor is present on this truck compared to the other FCX24s and 18s. Despite the smaller motor, I found the performance to be quite good, especially for a ready-to-run truck. good low-speed control, and a top speed of around 4 miles per hour, and there seems to be plenty of torque. One thing that I think will be a big improvement for those who like to customize these trucks or use the parts for other builds is the shift servo is now connected to this motor and transmission assembly, all as one unit. It's not connected separately to the chassis like on prior vehicles. Basically, it's a more modular design that should be easier to install into your own custom project. The overall size of this transmission is also a bit more compact. As you can see, this truck has counter-rotating drive shafts. That helps to reduce any torque twist. A 380 milliamp hour 2S LiPo is included with this truck. This is the same battery included with other FCX24 vehicles, which should give you some pretty good runtime. There is plenty of room back here to install a larger battery if you have one. Maybe not putting the weight exactly where you want it, but you can definitely extend the runtime. There are metal frame rails on the FCX24M, which results in the chassis being much stiffer than on prior models. The shocks are dampened with a bit of oil, and overall the suspension feels pretty good. You have a little adjustability both in the front and rear with where you position the upper shock mount. These are one-piece wheels with some FMS Super Marsher tires. The tires feel pretty good. They aren't glued to the wheels, and there is some foam inside. We haven't had any issues so far with the tires coming off of the wheel. Behind these wheels you have a standard 7mm hex, and the axles are an M2 thread. Accessing the chassis is very easy. The rear of the body is hinged, and the front is held in place with Velcro. Even when the body is down, you can still easily access the on-off switch. Up front, we have an axle-mounted steering servo, and just behind that, a familiar-looking ESC and receiver combo. I've had pretty good luck with these electronics on prior FMS vehicles, even going through some water, but I don't see it stated anywhere that these trucks are really waterproof, so I would definitely be careful. We get a pretty basic 3-channel transmitter that FMS has included with a lot of their prior products. I do like how easy it is to drive one-handed. You can hit the bind button to turn on the headlights, and then you can use the channel 3 switch to shift between high gear and low gear. Batteries for the transmitter are not provided, but just pop in 4 AAA batteries and you're good to go. Of course, one of the real highlights and selling points of these trucks is going to be the selection of detailed Land Rover hardbodies. This Series 1 Discovery that I have here looks great. I believe this is an ABS injection molded body. It's molded in color, not painted, so it does look a bit plasticky in certain situations, but the nice thing about having a truck molded in color is scratches are far less noticeable. I'd say this is easily one of the best looking trucks that you can get for $120. I appreciate the inclusion of this interior, even if it is quite simple, as well as those warm tone headlights. The light bar on the roof and the taillights are not functional, only the headlights. However, there are holes for LEDs if you want to install some yourself. As good as this truck looks out of the box, like most vehicles, a little bit of detail painting, weathering, and adding some accessories to the roof rack would really take this truck to the next level. I think the FCX series represents a great balance of scale realism, value, and off-road performance, with these Land Rovers tilting the scale slightly more towards scale realism, which I love to see. Enough chatting at the bench though, let's go ahead and get this thing out onto the trails. We drove this truck in a variety of locations over different terrain, whether that be rocks, mud, or loose gravel. We're fortunate to have plenty of spots well suited for smaller scale vehicles such as this. Enough rocks and obstacles and spots to be a challenge, while not being more than what the truck can handle. Our drives were more about exploration and covering some distance, rather than just trying to tackle the big rocks. Any tiny tire truck with a detailed hardbody is going to struggle to do any serious rock crawling. But I think for this truck's intended audience, there's enough performance here to make it enjoyable to drive and to be able to conquer somewhat challenging terrain without constantly getting stuck or tipping over. Obstacles that might be a breeze for some other 24 scale crawlers are more of a challenge for this truck, which can make driving more interesting and engaging. In high gear, the truck does a great job driving down well-worn trails at a comfortable walking pace. You just have to be careful to avoid little stumps or rocks, which like to catch the axles or even roll the truck over. And as with really any RC model, make sure debris like grass and vines is not getting wrapped up in the drivetrain. Out-of-the-box performance seems pretty good, all things considered. A little weight down low would certainly help, and FMS does offer some brass wheel weights compatible with these trucks on their website. However, the truck isn't too top-heavy like some prior FCX models I've reviewed prior. The 2-speed transmission once again proves to be a great asset. The low-speed modulation is fantastic, especially for a $120 ready-to-run truck. You don't have to hit every obstacle at speed. There's enough torque here that you can slowly creep up and over obstacles with a great amount of control. The dampened suspension is very smooth with a good amount of travel, all things considered. The turning radius is pretty good, though I did crank up the dual rate all the way on the transmitter. The counter-rotating drive shafts help prevent torque twist, and there also seems to be a bit less slop in the drivetrain, which somewhat mitigates that jerky start-stop motion that you would sometimes get on other FCX series vehicles, especially when going downhill. Of course, it's not like there's no slop in the drivetrain, but I do appreciate FMS was able to reduce the amount, and of course a certain amount of slop is going to be unavoidable no matter what crawler you're driving. As long as you're not expecting all-out crawler performance on what might be more accurate to call a trail truck, I think you're going to enjoy this rig a lot, as we certainly did. In my opinion, there's a great blend of scale realism and off-road performance, leaning slightly more towards the scale side than some prior FCX series vehicles. Despite this being a bit more of a budget ready-to-run crawler with a $120 price tag, when you're driving this thing around, those warm glow headlights, detailed hardbody, and smooth low-speed modulation, in my opinion, makes it seem a lot more premium. The FCX24M Land Rover Discovery strikes a great balance of value, scale realism, and performance, which I think is going to appeal to a lot of hobbyists. I wouldn't necessarily say it's superior or inferior to the prior FCX series vehicles. It's really just a matter of what you want from a smaller scale 4x4. The 24M with its straight axles, smaller size, and at least on this Discovery, smaller tires, obviously means this truck is not as capable as the FCX24s and 18s. But it does feel a bit more refined in some areas, and it is currently less expensive, priced at $120 US. For buyers wanting a vehicle that's even more scale in appearance, basically a model that just so happens to be an RC vehicle, FMS makes an awesome 1/12 scale Land Rover Series 2. It's obviously not designed for performance, it also is a bit more expensive, priced at $200, but if you're a Land Rover fan and you want something even more lifelike than these FCX24Ms, that may be a vehicle you'll want to consider. But aside from a few nitpicks here and there, I think many Land Rover fans and scale RC hobbyists will be very pleased with the body options currently available on this new platform. Aftermarket support is always something to think about when a new platform hits the market. While FMS does a good job of keeping replacement parts, hop-ups, and accessories stocked, I do anticipate aftermarket suppliers will also begin producing parts for this new platform, just as they have with the prior FCX24s and 18s. I've heard that a number of parts designed for the SCX24s from Axial will also work with this platform, however I don't know the specifics on what will and will not fit. Overall, a very impressive little rig that I look forward to getting back out onto the trails. I hope you all enjoyed this little overview and review and found it informative. If you have any questions, feel free to leave them below in the comments. I've included some links to where this truck can be purchased below in the description. I want to thank FMS for sending this model for review, and of course a huge thanks to all of you for watching.